most amazing massages, and you feel like a totally different person when you leave, even if you don't know why. It's really super cool. And next to her is Sarah Hurley, who is an energy healer as well. And next to her is Carol Phelps, who agreed to join us today. And I'm just going to tell you really quickly how I met them all, because it's kind of cool. I had a spiritual experience when I walked El Camino de Santiago de Compostela, and for some reason I saw this woman across the road, and I had to go tell her. I had met her once before, as you do on the Camino, but I didn't know her. And I walked over, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I tell her the whole thing. And I'm like, do you think I'm crazy? And she goes, oh, honey, of course I don't think you're crazy. I'm an angel reader. I'm like, what the hell? What's an angel reader? Oh, my God. So when I get home, I have to look it up. And I find one in St. Petersburg, and I go. And then when I come here, I have to Google it, of course. And are you an angel reader? I didn't think so.
I wouldn't phrase that.
No. But I did find you from looking for that kind of work.
Yes.
And I've been with her ever since, and that's been about 3 years. And then Sarah, I love this story so much. We were sitting in a winery with Kelly Bradley in Roanoke. Actually, that's not true. I got to start over. I was sitting in a winery with Kelly Bradley in Roanoke, and the owner came over to chat because Kelly Bradley knows everybody, and everybody wants to chat with Kelly Bradley. So she came over and was chatting, and Kelly introduced us, and we're just talking, and the woman just leans in, and she goes, you need to meet Sarah Green, because that's who she was at the time. I'm like, hey, anybody tells me that, I guess it's true. And so I got in touch with her, and we had lunch, and we've kept each other ever since. And Carol Phelps, bless her heart, I have not known her very long. When we had a place on the panel to fill, and I was talking to different people and trying to call them, everybody's busy. Everybody is so damn busy. She's so damn busy. She works like 90 hours a week. But when I called her, she was so enthusiastic and excited. She was like, you have no idea. I love what I do so much. I would love to share it anytime. So she agreed to join me. And that's been a short relationship, but and she actually did a healing on me too, and it was amazing. So we are just going to start, if you don't mind, one at a time. I'm going to start with you, Sarah, if that's cool. Is that cool? What was your occupational path before you were an energy healer?
Well, I was your typical suburban housewife, living in a golf course community. And then I talked my husband into doing foster care because I thought that sounded like a great idea. And it was. It was the most painful and beautiful and magnificent time of my life so far. And so when I had these kids in my house, we did refugee foster care and traditional foster care. And with the kids in my home, they had such big behaviors, and so many kids that are in foster care are medicated, and that was always, where they want to push these kids. And I was like, there's got to be another way. There has to be another way to help these kids process their trauma and process their grief and process their feelings without just dampening them with medications. And so that led me to energy medicine and energy work.
Started your exploration.
Yeah.
Yep. How about you, Carol? When did you come to energy healing or medicine? Or they're kind of interchangeable, right?
Yes. Okay. So I am a marriage and family therapist, and I've done that for 37 years and all I wanted to do is help people heal as a whole, not just the mental and the emotional, but as whole people. So I teach meditation, I teach Ayurveda, and I do about 8 different energy techniques. But it wasn't until I learned energy psychology and energy medicine that really resonated with me, and I know I'm the best practitioner I can be when something really fits and works for me. So I even though I do anything that will help people heal as rapidly as possible, because I want people to be happy, healthy, and whole.
That's the thing I loved most about when we talked, was that your job is to get them healed and out of there. Yeah, I guess, and that's all of y'all's jobs. Cynthia, what did you do before you found energy healing?
Well, the way I was thinking of our question was like, what brought me to energy medicine and healing?
Perfect.
And as I swirled that question around in my memory banks, I remembered a reverence of myself and my family walking through the woods of the Northeast and sailing on a lake, running into the ocean waves, and I remember hearing, "Peace be with you," at the end of my grandmother's Catholic service.
Oh, nice.
And I remember touching a Shinto shrine and feeling a sense of love and beauty all around me. I recall going going to a service where we were experiencing just, a different Jewish tradition. And also, there was an opportunity on a regular basis just to be with my family, stimulating conversation around the dinner table, and then drinking these shakes that were mixed with lecithin and brewer's yeast and green stuff.
Oh, you had that family.
Oh, yes. And I also had the family that would give me treats to hide uncomfortable emotional feelings because they would not be processed. And the sense of incredible embarrassment having to wear ugly shoes to school because I needed correction for my feet. And the purple headgear with the braces attached to fix my bite. And then also my father's hands playing the piano. And all those childhood memories that really stirred my soul and that stressed me out in the external world helped bring me to energy medicine. Because in my early 20s, I moved to Los Angeles. I left college for a little while, and I wanted to see if I can get into the film industry. Instead, I just struggled along for like a year and a half, and then I found my spiritual family. And I decided to go back to college, and I needed part-time work to support me in college. That is when I found my life purpose and my path, because I found a part-time job at a holistic chiropractic office, and they were very spiritual. They taught me on a high level of physical modalities, therapeutic modalities, that I had hands-on training. I got to work with people immediately, and that was the beginning of my
I love that.
journey.
I love those happy accidents, right?
Yes.
When you're not
Oh,
looking
yes.
for it and it feels right away. Carol, I'm going to start with you on this one. How would you explain energy medicine or healing to someone who's never heard of it? Like they have just never even known it existed, and then they just heard about it right here today.
So one time when I was at one of Deepak Chopra's classes, he showed that if you move a thing back, at the finest level, everything in the universe is resonating atoms. If we went to the most fine level. And so in energy healing, we are working with literally the deepest part of who we are and helping to balance people in different ways. The energy medicine I do is actually called Eden Energy Medicine, and we work with 9 different energy systems in the body. Like we work with meridians like acupuncturists do, and chakras and radiant circuits and the aura, and in the hopes that we can get people as balanced as they can be so that they can heal themselves. It's not about us being healing, it's about teaching people how to balance themselves so that they can maintain good health.
I love that so much, that the teaching that people are responsible for so much more of their health than they usually
Yes.
know. Yeah, and you guys all are like that, and I love that part of it. How about you, Cynthia? What do you want somebody to know who's never even heard of energy healing?
Well, I feel if we listen closely to the lyrics in Sting's song, "We are spirits in the material world," we can understand that energy medicine, energy healing is all about the life force flowing freely within us. That energy medicine and healing is there to be aware of the blocks, the disruptions, and these are the things that we see tend to create physical, mental, and emotional imbalances in us, problems. And that this life force energy that practitioners of energy medicine and healing pay attention to are the closest link to God, goddess, divine spirit. And these channels of energy flow in and around us. So the key to mind-body health is paying attention to these inner subtle energies and allowing that energy to flow freely in its intended direction. Now, of course, and I have longer answers, I hope you don't mind. and of course, there's a lot of different levels of energy. Some are visible, some are invisible. So, for example, the colors in a rainbow are visible. Our muscles are visible. However, Wi-Fi signals are invisible, just as the energy meridians that are used in polarity therapy and acupuncture are invisible. Now,
Sarah, do you have anything to add to that? Somebody new in front of you, you just met them in a coffee shop, and they're like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What's the simple way to...
It happens a lot. People are like, what do you do? And I'm like, I practice shamanic energy medicine, and they're like, what the heck is that? And basically what I tell people is it's kind of like acupuncture for the emotions, but I don't use any needles. So I work with my hands on or off the body, depending on what the situation is. And it's just about removing the imprints of heavy or toxic emotions from the field so that our bodies can be clear and we can be released from that, and we're not cycling through patterns of behavior or having psychological imprints activated.
Super cool. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I really appreciate that. I want to ask you guys, based on what we just shared from the stage before you came out about the opioid crisis and just Western medicine in general, that seems to sometimes rob people of their power and their knowledge of what they're capable of. Cynthia, if you don't mind starting, why, like right now, but I mean it's been forever, but why is energy healing so important? Why is it so important that it be at least a part of what you do to take care of your body?
that's a good question, Christine.
Thank you, Cynthia.
So I would say that energy medicine and healing is so important because it's the opportunity for all of us to really become more aware of everything as frequency, as pattern oriented, and it allows us to really take away the judgment, and it allows us the judgments that we often live by, and to see us all as a power of one, all as that circular family. And in the specific world of vibrational medicines, it's so much more preventative in its awareness. And
The wellness factor is really important, isn't it?
The wellness factor is huge, and prevention definitely is worth a pound of cure. So certainly in my experience, the people who are self-responsible, then they can be aware if they're throwing out too many electrons in a particular situation, and if they need to bring them back in, and if they need those electrons for themselves or for someone else.
No, that's good. It's
That's
just,
that's my start.
It sounds
it's,
like they-
it's just essential. It's like it's just life.
Right,
So,
right.
so like let's do it.
it's so much a part of the way you think you can
Yeah, I mean,
imagine not, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
No, that's okay. Carol, how about you? The people that you see, I know you've said that you've been a family and marriage therapist for 30-some years, and you've shifted more into this, and you have found it to be the most healing part of your practice. Is that true?
No, not the most. I
Okay.
think it's a confluence of
Okay.
everything that helps. But in the Eden energy medicine is largely based on Chinese medicine. And in Chinese medicine, they do say every disease has an emotional component. And even though I don't treat the emotions necessarily with people who come just for energy medicine, it's a part of what we have to deal with. And I love the thing they say in Chinese medicine about the heart is our mind, not our brains.
Kinda
Because
like
the
what Vicky
heart
was
has
saying earlier.
intuition, it has wisdom, and brains are so linear. And as far as why energy is important right now, I think the Earth before World War I was resonating at a frequency of 7.85 or something, and now it's at 44. And that's part of what's throwing energy off for people. And a lot of people are aware of how they don't feel as balanced, maybe. And I love that I can teach people a 5-minute routine to balance a whole lot of things in their body at the start of every day that helps them be in a better place to deal with the things that come their way.
Awesome. Thank you. Sarah, anything to add to that about the importance?
Yeah,
of it
I
for people?
think, what I see in my practice and what I focus on, and I work a lot with children and families because I kind of focus on childhood trauma. What I see a lot is that energy medicine gives people an opportunity to be responsible for their own care and what's going on in their lives. And I really try to hone in on that because, I mean, we had speakers talk about that today, about our thoughts and, you know, all of our actions so far that have brought us to their point. Well, you know, let's talk about how you got here. And let's talk about how to not be here, because if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you got. And so I think that it allows people to be conscious consumers, and it allows them to have an awareness and awakening about, you know, what they're doing and how they can participate in their own healing. And I also, you know, I wrote my little workbook for kids or whatever, and she said, you know, you can give people these tools, and it's empowering.
That's
We're
the
not
best
going to a
part.
doctor. We're not paying somebody. I mean, they're coming to
Giving
me.
them their power
you
back.
know, but I want them to have the power, and I think, you know, a lot of alternative medicine techniques do that.
Yeah, I think it erases some fear. I think a lot of times when people are ill, when they don't understand what's happening, you know, kind of like what Oscar was talking about with the food and the way that impacts this and our ignorance about that. When you aren't aware and something goes wrong, our society says go to a doctor and treat the symptom, find out what's wrong. And doctors have different ways of treating the symptom, but they don't very often try to figure out, wait, why did that happen? And that's what you guys do, which I think is just super cool. Awesome. I'm going to ask you each a separate question that has to do with what you do specifically. I'm going to start with you, Sarah, if that's cool. How does shamanic energy medicine differ from other forms of energy work?
I would say that because it's based, and the form that I practice, I trained under a man named Alberto Violdo at the Four Winds Society, and he's my boss now. I'm on staff there, so I have like the best job ever. But so this energy medicine that he studied for 25 years is 60,000 years old. It's 60,000 years old, and so not only is it just this ancient healing tradition, but it's also earth-based and earth-honoring, and it honors the connection that we all have, and it honors the messages and the stories that the plants and the animals and the birds, you know, that they have to tell, and how they play into our lives on a daily basis, and the cycles of the moon, and all of the beautiful things that the earth provides. So it's in that. And I think, too, with the shamanic portion, you know, there's ceremony. You know, for my clients, sometimes we'll do fire ceremonies, and we walk people through rites and initiations that we don't have in our society today that are important to honor passages in lives. You know, one of my practices is the death rites, and I'll do death rites on people who are dying to an old way of being. You know, and that is incredibly freeing to walk somebody through that process and then give them an opportunity to write a new contract for themselves and to create this whole new way of being. And so I think that's the earth honoring, the connectedness, the ceremonial portion of it is how that would differ.
That's fascinating to me today, how much the importance of nature is coming up in so many different talks that people are having. We've gotten so disconnected from it on a daily basis. Carol, tell me a little bit, because I'm really intrigued since you were in traditional psychology for a while, now you're doing energy psychology. What's the main difference for someone maybe who has been having emotional or mental issues and has been trying to resolve them with regular psychology? Why might they try energy psychology? What's the difference?
Well, energy psychology pretty much uses the meridians. We use tapping on meridians. One of the things I love about energy psychology is we deal with resistance up front and before we do any treatment. And certainly resistance is a part of traditional counseling as well, although it's more less spoken about. I know that I have countless clients that have struggled with like anxiety and depression for decades, and in spite of meds and therapy and EMDR and all the wonderful modalities we have, and yet it never really let go until they got at it from an energy level, and that offered a freedom that they'd never had before. I think it goes so deep in the body, and it's not just a superficial treatment.
I love that. It sounds like all three of you, one thing I love is it sounds like they come to see you to learn, and you send them home empowered with ways of doing it on their own versus the just coming to the office and going home and then coming back to the office and going home and come back to the office. And I suspect, I don't know this, but I suspect you build on it. Like they've learned one thing and they go practice it and try it and they get better, and then you have other things to add, probably, yeah?
I hope so.
Yeah, right.
Not always.
It's amazing how just little bitty simple things of moving differently or breathing differently can shift you so significantly, not just while you're doing it, but throughout the rest of the day. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. I want, in the world of alternative medicine, what does that even mean? I don't know. It means kind of anything that isn't standard medical doctor medicine, I guess. But there's a plethora. I mean, my gosh, Google, I don't think is our friend in this case. There's so much out there. And so many people can say anything that they want and claim that it's a truth. And, I loved one thing that Caroline Murphy said earlier today about the Tao Te Ching. When she came to it, it just felt like truth. I feel like humans on a large scale throughout their childhoods lose their connection to their truth, and they start trying to figure out how the world works based on what other people are saying. So if you guys don't mind, one at a time, and Carol, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. If someone were interested and they thought, I just kind of want to work more on wellness, and I want to work more on prevention, and I want to kind of delve into what these ladies have brought to mind, how do they protect themselves? How do you find the good stuff from the bad? Not good and bad, I don't like
good
those terms.
practitioner. I was going to say, I just
Yeah.
renewed my energy malpractice insurance or whatever.
Oh, wow. Oh, who knew that existed? Wow,
Yes,
okay,
in fact,
okay.
There are 85 different modalities listed on the energy insurance.
Wow.
85. So I think it's a really hard thing. I have a hard time referring people. I know this sounds hopelessly arrogant to therapists because there aren't many therapists that I trust to refer to. But I think that when I had to find practitioners for people, which I used to do, I would call and I would ask them questions, and I cared less about their answers and more about their attitude, their emotion, their willingness to share, their concern about my being clear about getting my needs met, than really the answers to the questions. Because one of the things we know in therapy is it's not the modality, the training, the years of experience that makes a difference for clients. It's the rapport between the therapist and the client that does everything. And I think in any healing modality at all, it's about feeling safe with a human being, because then we're willing to stretch and do the kind of growth that's possible with any modality. So if you ever feel any alarms when you're talking to somebody or when you meet them, it doesn't even mean they're a bad person or a bad practitioner, but it probably means that's not the best person for you.
Just a bad match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I talk about that, about toxic people. It doesn't mean they're bad or there's something wrong with them. Just maybe you don't need them in your world, but they could be somebody else's biggest blessing. It just depends on how you're going. That's a really, really great advice. I think a lot of people, anytime I've ever had someone in my life who was struggling and they want to find someone, I always say, especially with young people, find someone, go. And if it doesn't feel right that first time, that's when you stop. You don't have to go 12 times to finally decide that it doesn't work. You don't have to try to second guess yourself or convince yourself that maybe you just missed something. Because you guys know this better than anybody. You can feel it. You can feel it. And like you said, it's not that they're a bad person, just maybe not a good fit. Thank you for that. That was awesome. Sarah, what about you?
That's pretty close. I mean, my thing on that is trust your gut. Mm-hmm. Just because somebody else had a great experience with somebody doesn't mean that they're the right fit for you. I mean, I know, the school that I work for, we have a listing, a directory of practitioners, and there's thousands of them all over the world. I think we've graduated like 10,000 students. Not all of them are good. I'll just be the first person to tell people that when they call the office and they're asking. I'm like, they're not all good. So do your research and check in with who feels right for you.
Can I ask you something about that? Because one thing that I learned from you really, really early on was in the work that you do with, you've worked with children and adults, and you told me that, people get disconnected from how much information they can get from their bodies the older they get if they're disconnected. And you told me that a very low percentage of adults that you work with, when you're trying to help them figure out where the trauma or drama or whatever is going on, very few of them can identify it. And you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, 100% of kids can.
That's what led me to write the workbook that I wrote,
Right.
because I figured out that children didn't need me to tell them where the stuff was sitting in their bodies. You could ask them and they could feel it.
Right,
So I didn't need to be there. So I was essentially running myself out of business.
Right.
But
Right.
you know,
I love that.
It's children. They know, you know, and if we could go back to being our children when we're looking for a practitioner and be like, you know, when kids are like, I don't like that guy, you know,
Right.
and be okay with that. You know, but we train that out of our kids too, and we say you have to be nice to everybody, and you have to hug everybody, and don't trust your intuition because we're being nice, you know, and we need to stop doing that.
I know, that's why I asked, because your answer was profound and helpful, you know, trust your gut. But what about people who have gotten out of touch with their gut? Is there any tip you could give to someone as they're approaching, let's say they decide they're going to call 10 people. Mm-hmm. Is there anything they could look for experientially that could be a sign to them that it's a yes or a no?
Yeah, you know, I think I live in such a state of going with my gut that's a hard question for me to answer. I mean, you do want to go to somebody who has some. Well, and not even always. I mean, you don't even always want to go to somebody that's credentialed and has a bunch of letters behind their name and a bunch of certificates on their wall, because sometimes those people are shady, you know? And so you just...
Wait a moment.
I'm not talking about
Just
you.
not always, Carol. Not you.
So I think what you start doing is you start asking around, you know, and you start talking to people and start getting referrals, and a lot of times the same name will start popping up. You know, and you'll start to kind of get into this. You know, we just had this conversation. You were asking about, you know, someone that does work, and I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to start asking because I should have that in my back pocket. It will show up. You know, it will show up when the student is ready.
The teacher will
I
come.
want to say, when my clients are trying to make a decision, they say, I just don't know what to do. I'll say, I want you to put your hands over your heart chakra, and I want you to put your focus in your heart and really listen. And it's amazing how just doing that, they get a clarity.
Cool, you guys have homework. Ha. How about you, my dear?
So I tried to come up with an acronym, and it reflects definitely a lot of what's being said here, and it works for the adults, not so great for children, and my acronym is CORE. CORES, like, you know, the beer company in Colorado, so COOOR, and it's Constitution, Outcome, Open, and Research. So constitution being the more that you understand yourself and your body-mind constitution, then you will be able to find the therapies that work well for you. And that means some of us are more sensitive and need to have sensitive, less invasive therapies, whether they're Western or alternative or energetic, that we call energetic. Or if you're denser and you need something that's more invasive, more hard-hitting, that is more activating. So I work a lot with an Ayurvedic approach, so knowing Vata, Pitta, Kapha is super helpful in that combination. And so that's understanding, you know, again, who you are, how sensitive or insensitive, that's just a simple way. And then your outcome. What is your outcome? So for people who don't have a gut level feeling, it's excellent to just take out a piece of paper, you know, and write out what is your outcome, what are you trying to achieve, and then that will already start to clear out some of your choices. And then you can also, of course, be open to asking friends or asking someone you trust that is either somehow related to this profession or a similar one. And I mean, these days, I know I've been like living this for about 30 years now, so it's like no matter where I go, there's people who are involved in alternative healthcare and energy medicine. So there's just tons of magazines and wellness expos that you can go to, and you can go to YouTube and you can see people's, you know, you can see them doing things. And so then you get a sense just from watching somebody in their practice if that, you know, seems like something that intrigues you. And then research. Do your own research, and maybe credentials are helpful for me because I know a lot of different therapies. I look for credentials, or perhaps not, but, and also I like photos. I can read someone's photo, whether it's traditional Western medicine, because I'm very grounded. I like traditional Western medicine for certain diagnosis options, and then energy healing for really handling everything else.
Awesome.
That helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. Carol?
It's really hard for me not just to want to show somebody what I do, to talk about it instead of do it. But
I know, I love it. Every time you start talking about it, your whole face lights up. You're so excited about what you do.
I
It's
do love
really,
what I
really
do.
cool. She was actually working on somebody in the back.
oh, I was.
And giving a little lesson. Yeah, it was very cool. But we're almost out of time, and I want to make sure everybody knows how to find you. Carol, if somebody wanted to work with you, how do they find you?
I'm on a Psychology Today site as a therapist, so that's the easiest way to find me. If you Google me, it'll come up. And also, I just want to say real fast, last Sunday, I don't know if you believe in this, but last Sunday I was given a workshop to do, and it's already full. And so I'm going to do it again. It's about exercises and meditation to identify your shadow side, your light side, and then we're going to put it together and create a fused glass mandala that is a beautiful representation of the beauty of you. So.
Okay, cool. Sarah, how do they find you?
Well, I was, jokingly, I'm trying to, not really have a huge practice right now because I run a nonprofit and I'm putting a lot of energy into that. And the second I shut my website down, people start calling me again. So I guess I'm supposed to still keep doing this work. So I'm going to put my website back up this afternoon when I get home. But it is heartlightservices.com. The best way to get me is just on Facebook at Heartlight Services. And if you want to know more about my nonprofit, it's switchlife.org.
Gosh, we could have a whole other panel on that. She's helping young people through skateboards, which is really super cool, she and her husband. But yeah, we'll have to do that another time. Cynthia, how do people find you?
The quickest way would be my website, circle-of-energy.com. You can also find me on Facebook under Circle of Energy or Goddess Initiations. I also teach yoga at Park Cities Yoga, so I'm on that website also.
Super cool. Thank you guys so much. Now you know where to go get your energy medicine done. Is that yours?